Hi guys, welcome to our daily encounter. As we get into 1 Samuel chapter 28, we see a man completely disconnected to God, and that is King Saul. The Lord had basically cut all ties with Saul. Saul had rebelled against the Lord. Saul had not killed all the Amalekites like he was instructed to. He killed all the priests in Nob. He was chasing after God's chosen vessel, that is David. He just completely gotten off track with God's will. And so the Lord had basically cut himself off from Saul. And as we look at this chapter, we can learn for ourselves what it means to be disconnected from God. In other words, what results from our losing contact with the Lord. And there's several things found in this chapter that are indicators to that very thing. And one of the first things here is fear. Fear replaces faith. This is found in verse 5 and verse 15, where Saul becomes very much distressed and afraid because the Philistines were coming. And the very place that they were going to attack would have completely split Israel in two geographically. And so this was a vital battle. Saul becomes very much afraid. And this is a result of his lack of faith. And his lack of faith was in connection to the fact that he had lost contact with the Lord. When we're walking close to the Lord, when we're drawing near to the Lord, we're walking in obedience and submission to the Lord. In a sense, that gives us confidence as we engage in the various battles during our day. When we are walking far away from the Lord, when we're walking in rebellion to the Lord, it reduces our confidence in trusting in the Lord to help us in our day-to-day struggles. And so when we lose contact with the Lord, it basically allows for fear to replace faith in our day-to-day battles. And it did that with Saul here with the big battle that he was coming up coming across with the Philistines. Also, when we lose contact with the Lord, we lose guidance from the Lord. And this is found in verse 6 and then also in verse 15, where it says, and when Saul inquired of the Lord did not answer him either by dreams or by Urim or by the prophets. The Lord wasn't revealing anything to him directly. He wasn't revealing anything to him through the priests, nor was he revealing anything to him through the prophets. Saul was completely left out of the loop with God, and he had lost that direction that he so desperately wanted in this particular situation. And we too, when we're living a life disconnected from the Lord, not thinking about the Lord, perhaps even walking in a way that's contrary to the Lord, then we also lose the guidance that the Lord provides us. It might just very well be that there are times when we really need the Lord to step in and give us direction and help. And we may not be able to be in tune to that or see that because we've been so far away from the Lord and disconnected from him. Also, because of the fact that fear replaces faith, and because of the fact that we lose guidance, it might be that the desperation of the situation causes us to basically lower our standard of morality. Saul does this when he consults the medium. We see there in verse 3 that Saul was very strict when it came to mediums. It says, now Samuel had died, and all Israel lamented for him and buried him in Ramah in his own city. And Saul had put the mediums and spiritists out of the land. Saul dealt very decisively with the mediums and the spiritists. The mediums being those who conjure up the dead, the spiritists being those who communicate with evil spirits. But Saul had dealt very decisively with both of those groups of people. But now, because the situation has become desperate, because he's afraid, and because he hasn't received clear instructions from the Lord, he consults this medium and therefore lowers his standard of morality. And that can happen to us as well. As we lose contact with the Lord, as we begin to walk on our own in this world and live a life separated from God, our standards of morals can decrease as we try to do whatever we can out of desperation to try to maneuver through this life. And so that's one of the downsides of losing or being disconnected from the Lord. But then also we replace our royal garments for common ones. That's what happened with Saul here. He disguised himself, verse 8, and put on other clothes. He took off his royal garments, his royal robes, and put on common clothes because he didn't want anyone to know who he was. He didn't want this medium to become afraid, I'm sure, and turn him away. So he disguised himself and started to look like a common person. And whenever we lose contact with the Lord, we too lose our royalty. You know, we are all God's children. 1 John chapter 3 and verse 1. We are all a royal priesthood, we're told in 1 Peter. We have royalty. We are sons of God, children of God, and therefore we are royal as we are children of the King. But when we lose contact with the Lord, when we begin to live on our own, disconnected from God, we trade in our royalty with just common clothes, and we begin to look just like everybody else. And we lose that air of royalty that we once had. But then also, we begin to travel in darkness. Not only did he come with these common clothes on, but he also went to this medium with in the dark at night. It says, and they came to the woman by night. And we too, we begin to walk more and more in darkness when we are disconnected from the Lord. Maybe because of our wanting to hide what we're doing, or whatever the case may be, we begin to do things in the dark, in the night, instead of boldly walking in the light so that our deeds can be exposed. We try to hide what we are doing. And as a result, we travel in the darkness in the nighttime. And then also we become prey to our enemies, as found in verse 19, when Samuel tells him that basically the Philistines are going to win the battle. We too lose the battle against our spiritual enemies, and maybe even against our physical enemies. And people now have a reason to accuse us and to malign us and to slander us because we've gotten off track and we've done things that are contrary to what we profess. And therefore we become susceptible to the attacks of the enemy. And we might even become susceptible to more and more temptations and be driven even further away from the Lord. And then finally, if we stay disconnected from the Lord, it can lead to death. It can lead to a slow death. We need the Lord each and every day. We need the Lord as our oxygen. We need the Lord as our food, as our sustenance, as our water for refreshment. We need the Lord for life. And when we disconnect ourselves from the Lord, it's almost like we're spiritually suffocating ourselves and begin to experience a slow death. And that becomes perhaps the most tragic part of this whole process of being disconnected from the Lord. So Saul living this life disconnected from the Lord teaches us a lot of things. It teaches us that fear replaces faith when we're disconnected from the Lord. We lose guidance. We become desperate and lower our standards of morality. We replace our royal garments for common ones. We begin to travel in the darkness. We become prey to our enemies, and it leads to death, a slow death, because we are separated from the Lord. So this ought to encourage us to not live a life far away from the Lord, in rebellion to the Lord, walking away from the Lord, but drawing all the more close to the Lord in obedience and submission and love and adoration for God, so that as we draw closer and closer to Him, the opposite will happen. We will actually have the blessed life of having the Lord near us to help us, to guide us, to strengthen us, and to keep us throughout all of life's circumstances. So let's draw close to the Lord today. Let's not follow the example of Saul, but let's draw all the more closer to Him and derive all the wonderful, blessed benefits that come from such a relationship. So with that, guys, I do thank you for watching the video today. Hope you guys have a great day. Love you guys. God bless.